What's up, everybody? This is Aircreed Harry, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about a new channel I'm making, discussing my experiences with astral projection and basically the spiritual journey that I went on. So I'm doing this to relive the spiritual journey that I went on. And that spiritual journey really involved a lot of different audible books. I was working for the phone company, and at my job, I was working on telephone poles and cables and underground splicing cables. And so I was doing this type of work where I'll be sitting for hours, splicing hundreds or thousands of wires together to connect telephone communications. And in this time, one of the things I did to pass the time was listen to audible books. So it was during this audible book journey that I went on that I got to listen to books that I've never read. I am not a big fan of reading books. There are a few books I've read. I used to mostly read magazines. I was a big Popular Science and Popular Mechanics magazine and reader, and I was subscribed to the two, but I wasn't into books. And so it wasn't until Audible books that I really got to listen to a lot of books I always wanted to read and just never got around, or rather, never made the time to read. And so Audible books really changed my life because I got to listen to so many different books. And I'm going to be discussing these books. A lot of the books I want to re-listen to. I haven't heard them since the very first time years ago. And they really helped me in my spiritual path that I went on, this journey that I went on. And it was wild how at that time, like one book just led to the next book. And it's just reaffirmed information that I heard and things that I already kind of knew, already believed before hearing these books throughout my life. I've always heard bits and pieces of information and thought that information sounded true. And anyway, these books just helped put it all together for me and really got me on a spiritual path. And it's really interesting how it happened, and in some of the particular books that were basically a fork in the road for me. Some of these books I listened to, and I had to decide if the writers of these books were nut jobs, right? And they're just making stuff up, or they're actually talking about factual experiences they had and that they lived. And I had to decide whether to believe some outrageous stories or not. And spoiler alert, I chose to believe it and went with that. And it was probably the best decision I made in my life. And I've had so many experiences when it comes to the spirit realm, astral projection, meditating, like very powerful experiences. And I'm looking to get back to that. I'm looking to get back into astral projection practice. I used to practice every day, sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day. I practiced. It was a lot of meditating and meditating to leave the body. And so I want to discuss those things. So I'll be discussing the books that I've purchased, the books. I'll be re-listening to some of the books again. Um, and uh, I'll also be sharing the information and my notes on each of the books. Now, this is not anything I'm used to practicing, taking notes from books that I've read or listened to, but I'm going to do that. Um, I have an audio recorder, little recording device. And as I'm listening to the books, I'll take my own notes so that when I go to make a video discussing that, I can remember my notes and tell you guys my thoughts on the information that I heard. And because there were a lot of times I listened to these books, multiple different books, and they just put a puzzle together for me. I had pieces of a puzzle, but missing information that all these different books just filled in to make a more complete picture of life, of the astral realm, of spirit, of our purpose here. And yeah, so I think it'll be pretty exciting. There's so much information, like besides the spiritual stuff, like when it comes to energies, right? EMF and things like this. Um, that was also a big concern of mine, Wi-Fi and all the cell towers, because I used to live in New York City and there were a lot of cell towers everywhere. And there was just so much information in documentaries as well that I got, um, that eventually I ended up buying electronic equipment for detecting different fields, like magnetic fields and RF and all types of energies, man-made and natural, that I wanted to detect to know if those energies were around me, because they do or they can affect you negatively, especially if you're around them all the time. I'll give you one example. There was one corner in Staten Island, New York, uh, Victory and Bradley, I think. No, Forest and Victory. There's that intersection has multiple cellular antennas, very low, like on a rooftop of a 2 or 3 story building. And when I purchased this testing equipment and I drove through that intersection, my meters were all pinning in the red. And all the meters, and I'll be showing this in future videos, the meters give you the information about what radiation levels are safe or unsafe. And long story short, if your meters are pinning in the red, it's very unsafe. And so this was an intersection that was just pinned into the red zone, being very unsafe because so much electromagnetic and RF interference and cellular, because you had power lines there and you had all the antennas were all around. And then you had food, they were like bagel stores and places that sold food that once, and another thing we'll be discussing is like water and how water has life and it has memory, and we're made of water. There's water in our food. And so when you have all this water and food and just even in your drinks next to these antennas being bombarded 24/7, it has a very negative effect. And so that's just one example of the information I'll be discussing. I've also have a radon detector. I'm sorry, I don't have a radon. I will be getting one, but I have a radiation detector, and that was for detecting radiation because my big concern at the time was about buying seafood that may have been contaminated by Fukushima. That was at that time when there was a earthquake and the nuclear power plant was leaking into the ocean. Maybe still is, I don't know. But there is a lot of other different type of radiation that could even be in your house. There's certain plates that have, certain dishes that have a radiation level to it. So it was just a safety precaution on my side. It wasn't a very expensive uh, device to purchase. There's a radiation device, but it was definitely very useful and gave me peace of mind to be able to test different areas or different equipment or different foods to see if there's any type of radiation. And anyway, I'll be discussing those. I'll be showing those tools. and also like a Wi-Fi detector, which really you could use your cell phone for that, but I have a specific tool that detects Wi-Fi frequencies. Anyway, those are a bunch of the different tools that I have that I will be discussing and talking about how it can help you to locate different radiations and just to protect yourself from these things because they all affect you and your human body because our bodies give off a biomagnetic energy field that you can actually feel. And that's something else I'll be discussing is these energies. Like I discovered on my own by accident these energies that we have. Now, there's discussion for probably for the entire, for humanity's entire existence. They've been discussing energies. And I can say this because it's well known in the Orient, in China in particular, about energies. In fact, Chinese medicine not only involves medicine like American traditional medicine, but their medicine goes beyond ours and that they include the energy aspect of the human body. And they'll get into meridian points. We have these meridian fields, these energy fields that flow through our body. So, my point is, this was something I discovered on my own by accident, where I started playing with what I felt was this energy ball in my hand. And even now, when I put my hands up in the center of our palms, we create a vortex. And if you practice this, you can feel this energy field in your hand that your body gives off. And eventually, if you practice very often, like I used to, you'll become very sensitive to all living things. You'll be able to feel them. I I would always bless my food. I have my fruits and vegetables. I used to do a lot of juicing. And so before cutting my fruits and vegetables, I would put them all together, put my hands over them, close my eyes, and say a blessing for the food, for the universe, my body. And during these blessings, I would feel a pulsation of energy on my palms and on my eyelids. My eyes were closed because your eyes also give off a vortex. This vortex that your eyes, and I'm doing this, it's like a spiral of energy that can come off your hands, your eyes, and that energy that comes off your eyes, people can actually feel. You may have felt it yourself, where you feel like you're being stared at or someone is looking at you. They're maybe behind you or to the side. You didn't even see them. It's just a sense of feeling you get. And sure enough, you'll look and there'll be someone looking at you. And so that's this field, this energy force that actually comes off your body. And there's a lot to that. I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about Heart Math. That's a company that's done all these experiments, and they were able to prove and actually capture with a camera the biomagnetic field coming off the human body. And they discuss how our fields interact with one another. And they've done a lot of great experiments proving what they claim. And it's really interesting. And their Heart Math I've been following for many, many years. And so, anyway, this is going to be a new channel on YouTube I'm going to create. I'm not certain of the name yet. I do have a few ideas, but I'll determine that maybe today and put this video out on my regular YouTube channel, but then also on the new channel I'm going to make. So if you want to follow me on this journey where I'm reliving a journey I already went on years ago, starting in, I think, 2011, and I'll be talking about my experiences with meditating and astral projecting, and I'll be talking about why I'm looking to do that and how it can help not only myself, but how it can also help you and everyone else on this world. And I feel I feel really excited to share this because I was able to take the time to go on this journey. I got to listen to all the different books that I listened to, and I actually did many, many, many hours of meditation and practicing of astral projecting and just tons of research. And I've been able to do this because I had the time, because I made the time. And that's a huge thing. And so my hope is that I'll be able to inspire some of you watching this video. I'll be able to perhaps guide you in a sense that because I'll be reliving the journey myself and I may be answering questions that you had already. So we'll see. I'm going to try to make at least one video a week on this subject matter. And ultimately, I'll have a goal, which is sometime during the summer. I know this is going to sound wild because I'm talking about this for the first time on this channel, but I'm going to have a meetup in the astral realm where people will learn, maybe you know already, or you will learn watching this channel, how to leave your body, how to have an astral projection or OBE, out of body experience, and practice that. And I'm telling you, it took a lot of practice. Practice that, and to the point where you can consciously leave your body. And as conscious as you are watching me and I am speaking to you, is how you are in the astral realm. You can literally be separated from your physical form and be as awake and alert as you are right now watching this video. It's not the same as sleeping and dreaming. This is something very real where, just as an example, I could lay down right now and within 30 minutes pop up out of my body and be in the spirit realm, in the astral realm. And it's really an exciting thing to do because if you're bored with life, or if you have a wanting to know or experiment with this information, I think you're going to enjoy this. I hope you will. Either way, I'm really doing this for myself. And the idea is I'll pull a whole trailer full of people who are interested as well. And we could all go on this ride together. And perhaps you'll learn the same way I did through these books. Perhaps you'll listen to these books as well. And they'll click in your mind the way they clicked for my mind. And you'll be able to answer a lot of questions about life. Because in the past, when, before this journey that I went on, I had questions like everyone else. I worried about life, I worried about death, I worried, what happens when you die. If, I would contemplate these things, every once in a while, every couple of months, the thought would pop in my head while I'm working or driving, and wow, what happens when you die? Is it like going to be nothing? Or is there going to be things, So what is there? So I've answered that for me. And I feel like you can answer that for yourself if you go on the same journey I went on. And yeah, so we'll see. So with that being said, I want to start with telling you my very first astral projection experience. And so I will be jumping from the books that I will be discussing later, because I went through a bunch of books before I got to the book that spoke about astral projecting and inspired me to want to astral project. And so that's the Robert Monroe Far Journeys book. And so after listening to this book, I was determined to astral project. I was determined to have the experience that he discussed, that Robert Monroe discussed in this book. And just a side note, there is an institute in the US called the Robert Monroe Institute, and I've never been there. I've only read a little bit of information on the website, and I have downloaded some of the Audible tracks for guided meditation. But there's a facility where they focus on helping you to teach you to have an out of body experience or astral project. Now, before I get into the story, I just want to say there are a few differences to me when it comes to astral projecting, to remote viewing, to lucid dreaming. Um, the way I understand it, and from the experiences that I've had, lucid dreaming, my definition, just so we're clear and for future videos, my definition of these words, lucid dreaming is a state in which you are sleeping and you are having a dream that you can control. You are controlling your dreams. Sometimes you can just wake up in a dream, physically be sleeping still, but mentally you wake up in your dream and you could control it. You can change things around. And I tell you, it is so much fun when you can control your dreams. You could be in the middle of a scary dream, wake up in your dream, realize you're dreaming, and then control the dream. So much fun, so much fun. And I can say in my attempts to astral project, where I was laying down meditating, listening to a guided meditation, in my attempts where I didn't succeed in my astral projection, many times I would fall into a lucid dream. And I could tell you there's nothing more fun, because you could have like the worst day, right? You could go to work and have a terrible day, or you could go to school or college, whatever, horrible day, and then you can go sleep at night and then have the most amazing dream ever that you controlled. And so it's really cool when you can do that. So lucid dreaming is dreams that you are in control of. Remote viewing has been proven already by this United States government and other governments around the world and many other people. Remote viewing, again, these are my definitions, is where you could visualize something that's not around you. So the way the government used it, and a lot of the examples that are given when speaking about remote viewing and the government, because this government, the United States government, did many experiments, and there's even been movies about this on remote viewing. They've spent probably millions of dollars on researching this. And their purpose, of course, was for intel. They wanted to be able to see and know what their enemies were doing. So one example is there was a satellite in space, and they asked the remote viewer to tell them what like the serial number on the satellite is in space. And the way they would provide the question to the remote viewer is usually in an envelope sealed with a card with maybe a picture or a location or some type of reference is in there, and unopened, that card would be put in front of them. So the remote viewer, not able to read or see what's in the envelope, would, focus on that. And then the idea is that they quickly, without thinking about what thoughts or visions are coming to their mind, quickly use a type of remote viewing shorthand that was developed. You can develop your own, but use some type of shorthand, which is just a short scribbles to describe something, maybe just a line at an angle or some kind of straight line or a square, usually straight lines and squares represent human-made structures. And so the remote viewer was able to identify many things around the world, from the serial number to a satellite to what somebody has inside of a safe 500 miles away from them. And so that's an example of remote viewing. Then we have what I call astral projection or out-of-body experience. Now, for me, from my experiences and from other people's experience, which describes the same thing, is where most of the time you are in a meditative state. You could be sitting up in lotus position. I've always done it laying down. And ideally, you don't want to lay down in your bed the same way you lay down when you sleep, because your mind and body is already programmed to sleep when you lay in your sleeping position. So ideally, you would want to flip your head around, put your head where your feet normally is, maybe lay at an angle you don't normally lay, or sideways across the bed, or just somewhere else, floor, on the carpet, on the couch, anywhere that your mind is not already programmed to sleep. And after a sometimes very brief meditative period, I think the fastest I might have done it was like 20 minutes. After a brief period or long period, whatever, you pop up out of your body, you feel your astral form, which is exactly like your physical form, but in an astral state. It's your light body. And remember, we're made up of energy, right? Mainstream science says if you zoom in to my hand here with a microscope all the way down, you'll get down to atoms. So we're literally made up of atoms, of energy. And so it's not so far from the belief that you could actually separate your energy body from your physical body. And it happens, and you can do it. It just takes practice. It takes wanting to do it. And so lay down, you pop up out of your body, you can see your astral form. You have all your fingers and toes and everything. Only difference is you can stretch your finger. And this is one of the tests you can do to know you're in the astral realm, is pull on a body part and see if it stretches. There's a lot of techniques that we'll be discussing. But that is your astral form, where you physically, energetically leave your physical body, and you can float around your room. You can walk right through a wall, or you don't actually walk in the astral realm. You move according to thought. So you don't want to think to walk. You just want to think to be where you want to be. And that's how you can move around. It's the easiest way. But otherwise, you could move through doors and walls and through the ceiling. I've done all of it. And I felt all of it. Like normally, okay, we'll just say this piece of wood here. So normally you touch something and you can feel the texture, I can feel the wood grain, I can feel how cold this material is or how warm it is. So normally you're limited to touching something, but in your astral form, you could actually put your hand right through, right? Let me see if I can make this here. You can put your hand right through, and as you go through something, you actually feel the wood grains inside your arm. I felt wood inside my arm when I went through a wooden door and I pushed my arm, my astral arm, through the door. I could feel the cold wood inside my arm. It was so freaky. And that's another thing, like, you really want to start practicing because it's so different. Again, you're as conscious as you are right now watching this video. You are so awake and so conscious that it's like right now, imagine you can just put your arm through a wall. how that would freak you out. You'd be like, oh, holy cow. It's literally like that. Saying like I've gone head first through a ceiling. I was able to feel the wood, um, the wood panel of the ceiling as my astral head went through the ceiling. Then I could feel the wiring in the ceiling, for the lights and everything, the electricity, all the wire. I could feel the difference between the temperature of the wood panel, as imagine my head's going through this, and then the next layer, I'll use like this next layer. I feel, and it's a different temperature. You feel the cold metal. It's so wild, but you feel it all, and you feel it inside your body as you're moving through it. And it's a very cool and very freaky feeling the first time. Well, the first time, probably the first year of going through walls and things like that, because going through a wood door feels different than going through marble tile or something. You can go through everything and anything, but you feel it. You can feel the difference of those different materials in your body, not just on the surface of your skin or your hand, or it's not just on the surface anymore, it's inside. And so that's a real trip. And yeah. So anyway, I'll tell you the very first time I astral projected. I'm pretty sure it was after listening to all three of Robert Monroe's books that I was gun ho. I was like, I have to do this because the stories were just so incredible. Imagine you could go to work, come home exhausted, tired, eat, take a shower, lay down, allow your physical body to rest while you go and take your astral form on an adventure. Go anywhere around the world, visit friends and family, speak to people from the past, speak to God, speak to angels. I have not done all that yet. I had some experience, and I'm going to tell you one now. But these are things that are all possible. And these are the reasons, or some of the reasons, why I feel is very important for myself and for others to astral project, because there is so much truth to learn. There's so much knowledge in the astral realm. There's so much fun in the astral realm. You can also look at the astral realm. I think the best superhero character that would, there's probably two now that I think about it, that would be very similar to the astral realm would be Green Lantern and Doctor Strange. Now, Green Lantern, because he can manifest anything he thinks of with his ring, right? You don't need a power ring, although you can manifest one if you want. But you can manifest anything you want in the astral realm. It's a thought. And within that thought of you wanting to manifest something, you can manifest it. It's really that fast and that cool and that quick. I mean, it's so cool. So I would say Green Lantern is probably the closest to what you can do in the astral realm when it comes to manifesting. Now, I mean, there's so much cool stuff you can do. Now, the other superhero would be Doctor Strange, because in the Doctor Strange movie, he actually astral projects. He gets the kung fu master lady, pushes him out of his body, his astral form out. And I don't, I've never been pushed out of my body like that. I've purposely left my own body, but I do feel like that there may be some truth to being able to do that to someone, to push them out of their to push their astral form out of their physical form. But that being said, everything else that he does in the movie is exactly the same. The way he moves around, he goes to see this one and goes that, travels, move, all of that is the same. And so it's really, really cool. When I saw that movie, I was like, yes, because I've done that. I've done that. I've flown around in my Astral. And it was a great movie to point out to people who I would tell my story to all the time about astral projecting. And I was like, you go right to the movie Doctor Strange, and exactly what happens as far as being in his astral form is what you can do, literally. It's not made up, it's real. You may have already even had an experience, but don't remember it, or just blew it off as a dream, thinking, whatever, it was a really vivid dream. That happens to a lot of people. I've had those dreams when I was younger, when I was, like 10, 11, 12. I would occasionally have one of these super vivid dreams. And later, once I was an adult practicing astral projecting, I realized, whoa, those weren't dreams. Those were astral projections I was having as a kid. So, the story. Now, I'd listened to the 3 Robin Monroe books and was determined. Now I decided I was going to have an OBE, out of body experience. So I began listening to a guided meditation. There were 2 I listened to. The first one was Paul Santisi, if I'm pronouncing his name right, on YouTube. He created a astral projection guided meditation soundtrack. And then later, he created a second one called a 3D astral projection. I was very successful with both. I like the 3D one a little better because in the meditation, he's speaking to you, guiding you, giving you affirmations, and it sounds 3D. It sounds like you could hear him walking around. And so it's really cool, but I was successful with both versions of the guided meditation. The other soundtrack I listened to was a download I did of Robin Monroe. It's like a white noise guided meditation. And so I would switch back and forth between those guided meditations. Not the 3D one. The 3D one came later, between the Robin Monroe guided meditation and the Paul Santisi astral projection guided meditation. And so I would listen to these tracks every day when I got home from work. Sometimes 2 or 3 hours a day, not straight. I would lay down for an hour. I wasn't sleeping. I was meditating. I was laying down flat on the bed, not moving. That was a very important technique, is not to move your physical form. So I would lay down without moving a muscle, listening to the guided meditation on my headphones. And I would do it for an hour, get up, do something, interact with my wife, and have some dinner. Then I lay down again. And my wife was so cool because she was so understanding. She was so she is so supportive. So she supported me in this journey of mine. I'm not spending time with her. I'm laying down on the bed listening to astral projection guided meditation. So it was really cool because I couldn't have done it without her support. In other words, if she didn't support what I was doing, it would have been a lot of distraction. It would have been, hey, get up and help me with this, or go do that. But I was left to do and search for this. I was on this journey. Was my internal self was saying, you have to do this. So I did it, and I practiced. It started like an hour a day, and then probably after a half a month or a month, I was doing 2 hours and then even 3 hours a day, and not getting anything other than very relaxed. And at this point in my life, I had never meditated before. I didn't know anything about meditation other than a couple of things here and there. I heard about counting your breath and breathing, and I'm like, I don't know anything. And I still, I didn't know anything about meditation then, but I was practicing this guided meditation for astral projecting. So I'm listening, and it takes me about 3 months, 3 months of practicing every single day, 1 to 2 to 3 times a day, depending on the day and what I was doing. Definitely 1 hour minimum a day. And it was 1 hour because the guided meditation soundtrack was an hour. And so I listened, and the meditation tells you what to do and think and what to repeat to yourself. It's a lot of affirmations you're saying to yourself in your mind. And 3 months, and there's a couple of things I'm skipping over, like sleep paralysis. I'll get into that later videos. But for 3 months I practiced before it happened. And it happened like this. I came home from work. I was living in Brooklyn, and I was living in the projects at the time, Bayview projects and Canarsie, Brooklyn, back in the day. And I lived on the third floor, and you'll understand why that's important. And so came home from work. I sat on the edge of the bed with my feet touching the floor. I put my headphones in. I think my wife was at work. I put my headphones in. I laid back and listened to the guided meditation. About a half hour into it, I pop up out of my body, right? So my upper torso is sitting up while the rest of my physical torso is laying down on the bed still. I sit up, and instantly in my room, I'm seeing the astral realm. I'm seeing the matrix. It was almost just like the movie The Matrix, where when they see the matrix, not the physical matrix, but the digital matrix, this is what I was seeing. Vibrating dots of light made up everything. My desk in front of me, because where I was sitting at the edge of the bed, in front of the bed was my desk. Above it was a TV I had hanging from the ceiling with chains. My walls were all cement. It was an old building built, in the 50s as a bomb shelter for the troops that came back from the war. Anyway, it was a solid building, poured, concrete cement everywhere. And everything was vibrating dots of light. I saw the shape, like if I looked at this mouse in the astral realm, it would have this exact shape, but would be made up of vibrating dots of light. And depending on the material, it would vibrate different. So because of the density of the materials. And things like this vibrate at a much lower frequency compared to like the trees or the grass or any plants, especially humans. Because in this realm, I'm sitting up, right? I can see my body laying down still. And I'm like so excited that I did it. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing the matrix. I'm just in amazement of what I'm seeing. That I see the matrix. I see what the world is made up of, what it's truly made up of. Energy, vibrating dots of energy. So my desk, my walls is all vibrating. I see plants. I see the tree next to my window. I can see energy moving up. It looks like you could see energy moving up the trunk of the tree. And like everything was energy. Everything was vibrating dots of light. I could see through my walls, I could see through all the walls of everywhere. The projects I lived in consisted of about 22 buildings, that were 8 stories tall and had about 79 apartments per building. And at that time, the neighborhood was not as friendly and nice as it was when I first moved there. There was a lot of negative energy, a lot of negative things happened in the projects at that time. So there was a lot of bad energy around there. So anyway, you'll know what I'm getting to. So I'm in this realm, and if you count it out, you count to like 30 seconds. It's a long time. Let me bore you for a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. See, this is a long time. So it's fast, but in the astral realm, this was a very long time because I was just tripping. And I wasn't on any drugs. I wasn't doing any drugs at all. None. Very important. I did no drugs at all at this time. I was completely drug free. The only drug I'd ever done was marijuana, pot, weed. But I wasn't on that at all at this time. So I was completely drug free. I don't want anyone saying, oh, you're hallucinating, doing drugs. I wasn't on any drugs. I'm looking around for like 30 seconds in just freaking amazement. And I look over to the building next to mine, which it's about 60, 70 feet, I don't know, approximately. You could pull up Google Maps and see. Building next to mine, about, we'll just say 60 feet away, more or less. And on the 3rd floor in the next building, I saw a person laying down sleeping, and over their head, I see a dark entity. I see this dark being almost like it wasn't wearing a hood, but I don't know if its hands were there. It was almost like the head was connected. Maybe the entity's head was in the physical head of the person. I'm not sure exactly what the heck I was looking at that moment. Remember, this is my first time projecting. I was so excited, so happy. And then I see this being, this entity in the next building over somebody's head. Like their body's laying down this, one direction, but they're at the head here. And so they're at this head. And one example I like to describe energy to people is we've all had the experience of our hairs standing up on end, right? Maybe you're frightened or you hear a story or you're somewhere and all of a sudden your hair stands up on end. I like to say if you had a special camera, and I think that camera exists now, if you had a special camera that could see your energy, if you compared your energy in a normal state compared to how your body would look energetically when you have your hair standing up on end, you would find that your body's actually putting out energy, putting out much more energy when your hairs are standing up than when you're at a resting state. So I'm saying this because this entity, this being that was feeding off of someone's energy, the person sleeping there was having their energy sucked off by this entity. I was so excited from this experience of finally having done it after 3 months of practice. I was like, yes, and I'm seeing the astral realm, and I was like, wow, it was amazing. The most amazing thing ever that I experienced in my life. Literally the most amazing thing I've ever experienced because I know it was real. So as I'm looking at this entity, my thinking now after living it all and thinking back on it is I was so excited. My energy was 1,000-watt bulb, whereas the person that entity was feeding off of was like 100-watt bulb. So he said that entity, the being, looked at me, right? It turned its head. I saw it turn its head and looked at me. We made eye contact. And in less than a second, it wasn't not even one. It was less than a second. That entity, I saw it move from where it was to me. And almost that fast, like it went from there to here. And I had never been more scared in my entire life. If I add up every movie, every scary movie I've ever seen, right? Put it all together, right? As a kid, seeing like The Exorcist and Nightmare on Elm Street, or The Omen, whatever scary movie there was that I saw, it paled in comparison to this experience of this being, this entity coming at me. I've had experiences in the phone company where I was working in Brooklyn, in a lot of ghetto areas as well, bad neighborhoods. And a lot of times I have to go into a basement of a high-rise apartment building. And a lot of times they'll have sub basements. It could be 2, 3 levels below the street level, where I have to get to access the telephone equipment. And there were a few times, a few times where I went into the basement that was pitch black with a flashlight looking for a box. I'd open the door, walk into a pitch black room, flash my flashlight, find people standing in the dark. Like, just think about how freaky that is. I hightailed it out of there. I turned around and moved. I was like, I don't care about that phone line. It's gonna have to suffer because I'm not dealing with people were in the dark. I don't know what they were doing. It just did not look right. It actually looked like a scary movie scene. Like what was that movie? Like the Blair Witch Project, where people just standing in the darks. I didn't know what was going on. That happened 3 separate times throughout my years working as a telephone technician in Brooklyn, where I go into a basement and there's people just in the dark, just standing there. It's freaky. So I'm telling you that story to just say that shit didn't compare to this astral being in my face. So this thing is in my face this quick. I see it like this close. It has dark, scaly skin, right? It's reptilian in nature. It has dark, scaly skin, this being. It had protruding cheekbones, right? I always describe the cheekbones like this because they stick out so much, the cheekbones. And it had sharp, pointy teeth, right? Small, sharp, pointy teeth and dark, scaly skin. I don't recall if it had some type of clothing or if it was just el natural in the nude or in its skin. I don't know. In its astral form. I was too terrified to even care or even look or examine at it because once this thing was in my face, I knew there was no doubt in my mind that this entity was real, 100% real. This thing was in my face. I jumped up and I woke up in midair landing. I was already in the air, awake, landing. That's how terrified I was. This thing scared me so much. I went from laying down, like my feet are touching the floor. Like, let's just say this is the bed. My feet were hanging, touching the floor, and I'm laying down. I was in the air, landing. That's just to tell you how terrified I was of this thing. And I was like, oh, I was like, I knew that thing was still in the room and I was not going to astral project again. And I didn't. That was the first time. It was the most amazing and the most terrifying thing at the same time. So that was it. That was the most amazing moment in astral. No, the most amazing moment in my life and the most terrifying moment in my life, all at the same time. And that was a real trip. And I have to say, the other times I astral projected, I did not see the vibrating dots of light. I saw everything like a ghostly form, like I could see through it all, but I did not see the vibrating dots of light. But I'm jumping. So that happened. I did not want to astral project again, and I did it for months. In fact, it might have been a good 6 or 7 months after that that my wife and I we took a trip to Europe, and we were, I think, at this point we were in Germany. We were in some small town, had maybe like 20,000 people in the small town, and we were like almost like in the country. So it felt very different for me energetically wise. I felt like, wow, now that I'm not in Brooklyn in the projects where all the bad things were happening every day, I didn't have that energy around me. I felt comfortable to try again. And so I practiced and was able to leave my body. That's when I was learning how to go through walls. Because every time I would touch something and my arm would go through it, I'd snap back into my body because I was learning. This was all very new to learn, these new sensations and feeling. Again, they're very freaky. So I did it. And then my vacation basically turned into me astral projecting. Like I didn't even want to go anywhere. Like my wife was going to do something. I was like, I'm just going to stay here and astral project. And I was doing that for hours because there were times where I'm listening to the guided meditation and I look at it as a roller coaster. I get to the point where I get to the vibration state just before you leave your body, your entire body will vibrate. Like it's not like any vibrating bed or chair you've been in. Your entire body vibrates. And that's the moment where you're about to pop out. And so I would focus, meditate, get to that point where my body's vibrating, but then I get so excited that it's about to happen, I come back down. So I might spend 2 or 3 hours on a roller coaster, getting to the vibration state and then back out of it, getting to the vibration state and back out of it. And so it was a roller coaster for me, practicing. And my entire vacation in Europe was me astral projecting. Like I went out a little bit, had some beer and pretzels, whatever, but I really, because this was so real, more real to me than this physical life. I mean, it's the same, but better because I could fly around and go wherever and learn. And I could literally go to someone that I know and listen in to what they're talking about or watch them if I wanted. It's literally like that. So that was Europe, came back to America. I still didn't really want to project where I was living. I was not comfortable doing it because of the situation that I had with this entity. But a little time later, probably another half a year or so goes by, and I decide to take this meditation workshop for the first time. So now I'm actually learning to meditate. And this workshop I took was called Awakening the Illuminated Heart. And I'll get into that in later videos. But I want to get to the point of this part of the story. There was a facilitator there who was teaching the workshop. His name was Ron. Ron, without me talking about my story, was telling myself and the rest of the group that was part of this workshop class about his astral projection story. He was talking about he and some of his friends wanted to astral project one time. They were all hanging out at his house. So they all decided to lay down to astral project. And so he was laying down on the floor when he pops up out of his body. And he sees all his friends laying down, but he's got one friend sitting on the couch, laying back on the couch. And he says in his friend's leg, he saw a face. And what does he do to describe the face? I didn't tell him my story. He's telling me his. He describes the face on his friend's leg like this. He does that to describe it. That's what I do to describe what I saw. He did that, said he saw this face. He was so terrified, he never practiced again. Not once. I was like, I heard that. I was like, yep, that sounds familiar. Because I didn't want to do it either after I seen that entity, that creature. And so, yeah. So that was very freaky. It was really cool to hear his story. And since then, I've heard many other stories from people who I trust in them saying their truth of their experiences running into these entities. So, I'm going to definitely be talking about this more in later videos, but I will say these entities, they do exist. They are around us. They feed off of negative energy. So anger or hate or anything considered negative is the frequency vibration in which they like to feed off of. That's their energy source, is this negativity, this fear. Fear, hate, all of that negative is the vibration frequency that these entities like. And so the way I've learned to combat them is to, number one, look at them as my brothers and sisters in the spirit realm, but then also project energy of love towards these entities. And I'll be getting into other stories later, but basically that's the counter. So if you have astral project, if you've had sleep paralysis and you've seen these entities before, just know you can love them away, right? And there's other really cool tricks and tips, like creating a lightsaber in the astral realm. You can 100% do that if you want to be a Jedi knight against these beings. But you don't attack with hate, you attack with love. And so that's a balance. That's something that I had to learn about love. And so I'll be discussing all those things in this new YouTube channel that I'm creating, speaking about my spiritual journey and my astral projection OBE journeys. And so I think you'll enjoy them, especially if you practice them. What I will be doing, although I haven't shown everything in this video, I will be leaving the links for the guided meditation. So anyone watching this can start there. I'll leave a few links, the books, Robin Monroe book for Audible books, and the guided meditation, just to get you started. And just know when I started, I started by listening to the guided meditation every night I went to go to bed. Also, whenever I was going to go to bed, instead of listening to nothing, I would listen to a guided meditation until I fell asleep, or I had a lucid dream, or eventually I had an out of body experience. But I listened every single night. And I say this is really important, is if this is something you want to do, if you don't really want this deep inside you, it won't happen. You have to want it, and you have to reach and search for it and practice and pray for it and ask spirit, ask God, ask the angels, ask your highest self, whoever you got to ask them and tell them you want this experience. And I'm going to get into more details later, but you have to want it. It's not going to happen otherwise. If you're blasé blah about it, it's not going to happen, because this spirit realm is going to put you to the test as well. You will have dreams that will be testing your decision making to see if you're ready to be able to enter into the astral realm consciously. A lot of people do unconsciously, but consciously, to be there and to learn and have these experiences, which they're better than any movie. They're literally better than any superhero movie, because you could literally create any of that if you want it in the realm. I'm, again, looking for knowledge. So I'm looking to get back into the practice heavily. But I think I think that's going to be it for now. So I hope you decide to sign up to my new YouTube channel that's talking about the spirit realm, the astral realm, and all my experiences and how I got to the point where I got to. And hopefully, in learning what I've done, perhaps you can learn the same things and come to the same conclusions. I'm not going to assume anyone's going to be able to do exactly what I've done and get the same results, but the knowledge is going to be very helpful. And until you start putting new thoughts and ideas like this into your mind, you never will be able to achieve it. So you have to start thinking about it and start wanting it for it to happen. Because I've had many people say to me, prove it. I can't prove it because you have to do the work. I can't make you have an experience without you putting in the work, just as I did. And so that's what it'll take. But the good thing is, you go to sleep every night, you could listen to the guided meditation. I don't really want to hear any excuses because a lot of people have a lot of excuses about why they don't do it. To me, is an excuse because I know what I've done, and I went for it. I went hardcore, and I listened every night, every single night. So I just had to push that, emphasize that you have to want this in order for it to happen. But once it does, once you even get to the vibration state, which a lot of people that I've turned on to the guided meditation have gotten to, that was proof to them that everything else I was saying was true. Because I told everybody, you're going to vibrate like you've never vibrated before. Maybe if you've done some breath work, some deep breathing, you might have gotten a similar vibration, but it's not the same as when you're popping up out of your body. Head to toe vibration. So cool. So many people have gotten there. I don't keep up and follow up with them if they've done it. A lot of people, I can't force you to want it. You have to want it yourself. And that's it. So you will never experience it unless you want it. My hope is you want it. My hope is the information I'm going to share with you will open your mind up, will open your heart up, connect your mind to your heart. You'll understand more about that later. Once you make this connection, it is so powerful that you'll be blown away. It just takes effort. And so you don't have to be frightened and do what I've done, right? I'm just telling you what I've done. If you do the minimum 1 hour, even just 1 hour a week, is better than the 0 hours you're doing right now. So we're also going to be talking about health in this video in my channel, a lot about health. And yeah, so, and a lot of documentaries I'll be going over. So it'll be really cool. I hope to share information you've never seen, or maybe you've seen it, but you need to be reminded of information. And that's kind of why I'm doing this video series now. And we'll be re-listening to books that I've not heard in many, many years, probably like 10 years or more. Some of these books I've not listened to, except the one time I heard them. And they changed me. So anyway, yeah, that's it. So I'm excited. This is new. I've never really shared this information before on YouTube. I know there are a lot of people doing it, but I've never done it. But I'm gonna try and share as much information and tell you some really incredible stories. And I hope to hear you guys having similar experiences and stories, because once you do, it's really going to change the way you see life, the way you see your fellow human being on this planet. You will see and you will learn without a doubt that we are all spiritual brothers and sisters on this world, even creatures that you've never seen before, these entities, these other beings that exist. So I'll be getting into all that in future videos because I have many, many theories. And once I lay out my explanation as to why, I feel you'll see it and catch and feel the same. So anyway, it's gonna be a fun journey. And I hope that you guys can come along on this journey, join my new YouTube channel. I'm not sure what the name's going to be yet. I'm making this video now. It's January 1st, 2024. I wanted to start the new year with this new video and a new YouTube channel. So I'm going to come up with a name. I'm going to make a channel. I'm going to post this video there, as well as on aircreedharry.com, Aircreed Harry YouTube channel. And then all future videos about this information will only be on the new astral projection, lifting the veil, OBE journey, spiritual. I don't know what the name is yet, but anyway, that's it. So peace out. I love you all, and I'll catch you later.